Much, Rebecca. Thank you. I don't know if it's good to be called interesting in the introduction, but I'll take it. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity, Jason and everybody, for the chance to come out and talk to y'all for a little while. As Rebecca mentioned, I'm here representing Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. We're an organization of former cops and judges and prosecutors who at one time were supportive of and worked in the drug war, and over the course of our experience doing that, really came to the conclusion that this war just isn't working. That's something that it took me 13 years in DEA, a couple years in Mexico, a few years in Guatemala, a couple years at headquarters to figure out that this isn't working. And I would say, I know that this is a marijuana event in 420 and it's a great day, but just like the war on marijuana is not working and doing a lot more damage, the war on other drugs is the exact same way. And we may not like the fact that people use heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine, and those might be the worst things in the world for you. But you know what's worse than that is what the government's doing to try to stop it. The consequences of the drug war are worse than the use of any drug at all. And all the drug war is doing is criminalizing a bunch of people that belong in hospitals and not jails. Or in the case of marijuana, that belong sitting on their couch with their families and not in jail. So, thank you very much. So 13 years in DEA, and now it's kind of ironic that I'm standing here talking about legalization. But it's not really ironic because I was in DEA, it's ironic because we're in Washington, D.C. We're in the epicenter of the free world. We're surrounded by monuments to Washington and Jefferson, and people that fought their whole lives to make this the freest country in the history of the world. And that hasn't happened. Today, the reality is, and we may not like to admit it, but the reality is that we're one of the least free countries in the world. We have the biggest percentage of our population in jail than any other country in the world. We're ahead of Iran, ahead of China, we're ahead of where the Soviet Union was. We've got 5% of the world's population, and we've got 25% of its prisoners. It's a disgrace, and I have to think that if Washington and Jefferson were to come back and see this, they'd ask why? How did this happen? What happened to our country? And the answer, more than anything else, is the drug war. The drug war has propped up an incredible police state that a lot of people don't see and a lot of people don't choose to see, but it's out there. We spend $26 billion a year on this drug war. That's not including what the military and intelligence agencies spend. We spent about $1 trillion over the last 40 years. We arrest 1 million people a year just for marijuana use. We have about 3,000 wiretap warrants signed every year. That's 3,000 times a year that the government can listen on your phone calls whenever they want to. And we have 50,000 paramilitary-style SWAT raids taking place in this country every year, and about 80% of those are drug-related. So the drug war really is bigger than the drug war. The drug war is an erosion of our freedoms. And I think as more people come to understand that and realize and appreciate that, we're seeing more and more support for ending this ridiculous policy of prohibition and in favor of legalization. So 13 years, and the most amazing thing about those 13 years is that the 13 years I was with DEA, there was never even a discussion about changing this strategy, right? It was always, well, you know, if drug use is going up, what do we need? We need tougher laws, we need mandatory minimums, we need bigger prisons, we need to spray chemicals over the jungles of Colombia, we need to put troops on the southern border. It's just more and more and more incarceration, more and more enforcement and interdiction. And I couldn't believe it. And, you know, when Obama won, like a lot of people here, I thought, well, you know, maybe this will be a change. I mean, when Obama was the candidate, and somebody asked him, he said, yeah, I inhaled. I thought that was the whole point. But here we are, a few years into his presidency, and nothing's changed. How can a candidate that was elected on a promise of hope and change and talking about reforming these policies sit by while his DOJ raids Oaksterdam University and puts Richard Lee in jail? So it's baffling in a sense, you know, why this drug war continues the way it does and nobody really talks about changing it. But as I thought about that, you know, I've really come to believe that there isn't a drug war. There's not a war on marijuana, there's not a war on heroin or on cocaine. It's a war on you. It's a war on individual people and their freedoms. Because really, what's freedom if it isn't the right to do with your body what you want to do with it? That's what the drug war is attacking. It's not attacking the drugs. It's certainly not doing a good job attacking the cartels. It's about limiting the individual freedom that you have. And that's why the government, no matter who's in the White House, no matter who's in Congress, has decided that you're an enemy of the state. Because you're the one standing up and saying, no, this is my body and I'm going to do with it what I want to do with it. That's what's so dangerous. It's not that they think that marijuana is dangerous to you. It's not that they think that marijuana is dangerous to the people next to you. It's that marijuana is dangerous to them. So I don't know if that was good or bad. I couldn't quite hear, but I'll just pretend it was good. But the good news is, and there is a lot of good news, and I believe that I'm going to live to see marijuana legalization in my lifetime. Me too. The good news is that this is really changing, and it's changing in a few really important ways. One is public opinion. Polls now say that about 50% of the American people are in favor of outright legalization of marijuana. About 75 or 80% are in favor of legalization of marijuana for medical purposes. What the states are doing, the states are really starting to stand up. From Colorado and Washington, we have some great initiatives there. Rhode Island, lots of Oregon. We have ballot initiatives and new ordinances and petitions all over this country. Well, people in individual states and state governments standing up to the federal government and saying, we don't want to fight this drug war anymore, it's a waste of our resources. And the third thing, because I spent 5 years in Latin America, that's really encouraging to me is to see what leaders in Latin America are doing, led by the new president of Guatemala, Otto Pérez Molina, Santos in Colombia, Calderón to some extent in Mexico. They're finally realizing that they're the ones that are suffering because of our stupid prohibitionist policies. And they understand something that the American politicians just never seem to get, and that's that there's no such thing as drug violence. There's a lot more alcohol violence than there is drug violence. What there is prohibition violence. That's what's fueling the civil war in Mexico. That's what's fueling a civil war in our inner cities. It's prohibition-related violence. And we can make that go away with a snap of our fingers if we could just end the drug war once and for all. Let the drug market be regulated the way the alcohol and tobacco markets are regulated. When's the last time you saw the Budweiser guy shoot the Miller guy over a vending dispute? When's the last time the Marlboro guy shot the Camel guy over a vending dispute? It doesn't happen, but it happens in drugs. It happens in drugs because of the ridiculous prohibitionist policies that we have in place. So I really appreciate everybody coming out here. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you for a few minutes. I really would hope and encourage you to visit our website. It's copsaylegalizedrugs.com. We've got some great information there, great resources. I know most of it's going to be stuff you already know, but hopefully you can point some other people that aren't quite sure into the right direction and see what these former police chiefs and former circuit court judges and former prosecutors, former DEA agents have to say about the war on drugs. Because it really is changing. It really is, this monstrosity is really starting to be taken down. And it's being taken down because of groups like this, groups like Overgrow, gatherings like this, and people talking to their friends and neighbors. So thank you very much. Have a great day. I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any questions, feel free to see me afterwards.
I just really appreciate that man being out here because I spent 3 years at a North Carolina prison for growing marijuana. And people like that that'll stand up for me, that means something. I spent 3 years away from my family for cultivating back in the late 90s when I was a recreational user. And after that happened, I just quit smoking pot for 9 years. It scared me so bad. So to have a DEA person here that I had to deal with back then and what happened to me speak out and actually honestly finally say that this drug war is wrong, that means a lot. And I'm so glad to have you here today. Our next honored guest to Overgrow the Government 2012, it's 420, Honor Cannabis Day, and cannabis saved my life. But the next guest we have here is a really special person to me. She started something called Peter's Page on Facebook, and that's how I met her.